And Mariko, afterwards, we will put a follow in the newsletter. So that'll be there, and then we'll have something, I'll have something up on the NAMI blog
Okay.
with the YouTube link. So I'll
Awesome.
send it to you, and that way you can share it as well.
Okay, and I put this on our LinkedIn as well. So hopefully we'll get maximum exposure for both
Okay.
organizations.
Terrific.
Great. Yeah. Stacy, do you, I know there was a news article about it as well in the Mercury News. And I said that to you, Stacy. Do you remember who sent the video, who made it and sent it? You're on mute, honey.
Stacy, you're on mute.
Sorry, I said it's kind of, I'll look to see, but I don't know because it's not, they're on my phone. So I'm looking.
But it was probably sent to me in an email, right?
Yes, because it was also in that Panther Paw newsletter with the butters.
Oh, I could probably find that. I don't know how much time we have, but I can look for that.
We can put the link in the chat if you want, because I'm not
That's
sure.
a thought too. Let me see what I can find.
Because I'm not sure we'll have time to
Yeah.
run it right now.
Yeah, it's like a 10-second or 15-second, but let me see what I can find.
Okay. I think I don't see any more people coming in, so maybe we should get started with our meeting. So good evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Forward. I'm the former executive director filling in for Rovina tonight. She had an important meeting that she had to attend to. So I'm doing my best to run this webinar. And just a little bit of an update about the office. Again, just to remind people, the helpline is open Monday through Friday. We take walk-ins between 10 and 2, but the hours are 10 to 6 for calls and emails. And we do also have after-hour support on evenings and weekends. And we have lots of support groups. We're starting to get some things back in person, but most of the support groups are still on Zoom. We do have a couple that are in person if that's what you prefer. And you can find that on our website or call the helpline if you need help figuring that out. All of the educational classes have been up and running, for quite some time. And again, we're getting more things back in person, family to family in English and Spanish. We're doing in person again. We will have some Zoom classes if needed. But you can find all of our classes online or call the help desk. FaithNet, we do have a mental health 101 presentation this Thursday, the 15th from 11:30 to 1. If any of you are connected to faith leaders or a faith leader yourself and interested in learning about how to start mental health ministries, we have a FaithNet team that will help you do that. And this is a basic mental health 101 to learn more about the importance of your role and, helping the people in your congregations. Also, our community peer mentor program, we do take self-referrals and we work with El Camino Hospital. And also save the date. October 5th is our NAMI walk. Seems like we just finished it, but we got to start planning the next one. So put that on your calendar. Also, the nominating committee wants to report that we do have our slate of candidates for our next fiscal year, which I believe starts in April is when we'll be voting on it. Uday Kapoor is our president. Peter Newman, secretary, the treasurer, Steve Wade, vice presidents, Beverly Lozoff, Juan Perez, Frank Alioto, and Marie Milo. And then we do have 3 members at large, Karen DeLumi, Jillian Yang, and Dolly Sandoval. If anyone is interested in nominating someone else, you can put something in the chat and I will be glad to pass it on to the nominating committee. So next, we want to turn this over to Uday Kapoor, our president, and we are presenting our 2023 Community Merit Award. So Uday.
Thank you so much, Kathy. My name is Uday Kapoor. And it's such a great pleasure to welcome Principal Levine and Stacy to this, and Mariko. We are so honored, and the Santa Clara County Board of Directors voted in November to present to Ida Price Middle School this award, the 2023 Community Merit Award. And Principal Levine is showing the plaque. This award is in recognition of your dedication to the work around mental health awareness. We are deeply honored and moved by the efforts demonstrated by Price Middle School in raising funds and advocating for mental health causes. Your school's initiative has not only contributed to our ongoing endeavors, but has also set a commendable precedent for schools in Santa Clara County. So hearty congratulations. We at NAMI Santa Clara County extend our sincerest gratitude for the dedication, passion, and hard work exhibited by the students, faculty, and administration of Price Middle School. Your collective efforts have made a significant impact that we want to recognize and celebrate through this esteemed award. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to read what it says on the plaque because I think it's very significant. It says, Community Merit Award. Stacy Bebo is the spearhead of our mental health walk at Ida Price School that has raised tens of thousands of dollars for NAMI, but more important, brought our community together, stopped the silence, and really had middle schoolers, such a precious, vulnerable, and perfect age to bring this to their attention. And it says, Ida Price Middle School, in recognition of outstanding outreach, advocacy, and commitment in creating awareness and education around mental health issues. This is for not only Stacy, but all our PE teachers who helped. I could, if you can indulge me for 1 second, if I can screen share, I'd like to show you. No, you know what? I think it's recording and I don't want to mess around, so I won't do that. I don't know how to close that off. No, I want to cancel. Now I've just totally messed it up. I don't know. Anyway, so if I can close that out. I'm very proud of, is this showing? Is this screen showing?
Yes, we can see you.
I'm trying to get rid of this screen now and I'm so sorry. Okay. So so proud of Stacy and the efforts of all of our teachers and our community in raising the money for NAMI and bringing mental health awareness to our community. Thank you so much. Stace?
Can you just, it was
I
Price
just-
Middle School. I see somebody wasn't sure what school it was.
Ida Price Middle School in Cambrian School District. That's correct.
Yes, and I just want to thank NAMI in general because of your support, what you've done for me. I was able to spread the word and help all these other people, just like Miss Lavin said, come together as a community. But it was Kathy and many other people who helped me throughout the years. And so this program offers so much to everyone. So all the End the Silence, the family to family, and everything. So thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Maureen Milo, one of our board members. She's going to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you. Okay, so our speaker this evening is Mariko Sayak. And a little bit about Mariko, so you know, she is a community advocate who has dedicated her career to making positive impacts on social and environmental justice issues. She's the executive director of CASI, and that is the Counseling and Support Services for Youth, a nonprofit that partners with Bay Area schools to provide resources and professional on-campus mental health services to students free of charge. Rico was a former mayor of the town of Los Gatos, and in 2022, she was selected as the Woman of the Year by the California Legislature Assembly District 28. She holds a bachelor's degree in environmental science from UC Berkeley and a master's in environmental management from Duke University. And she began her career working for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and spent many years in the environmental field. This evening, Mariko is going to address a critical issue, the emotional health of teens, which NAMI National is also recognizing as keenly important with its recently launched helpline for teens and young adults. She will talk about what tools are available to support our youth, what does school-based counseling look like, and why it's effective, and much more. So on that note, Mariko, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Marita. Thank you, Uday and Kathy, for inviting me to join you tonight. NAMI is a wonderful organization, as both Principal Evan and Stacy have mentioned, that we are just constantly thrilled to refer our families to, but also to be able to partner and have you as a resource to so many in our community. Congratulations, Principal Evan and Stacy. I think it's so appropriate that I'm here to talk about school-based mental health following the honors that your school has been able to bring, because really what I'm going to be focusing on tonight is the emotional health of our teens. I'm going to share our screen, but really talking about what tools are available and with that, schools and its impact and why they are such a valuable tool for all of us to consider when we think about how we can help our students. So encourage lots. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to include that in the chat box. I'll just ask Maureen and Kathy to let me know if there's anything there. Happy to always pause and reflect, and hopefully we can engage in conversation.
Yeah, and let me just stop you for one quick sec. If
Okay.
The audience doesn't mind, if you can put your questions into the Q&A, we'll see them separately from the chat, but I'll look at both. And then at the end, Mariko will answer the questions unless there's something that really fits in with maybe one of the slides that she's working on.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what is the emotional health of our kids? I think as people are aware, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, that youth mental health is in a crisis. We have heard the U.S. Surgeon General talk about it. Last year during the President's State of the Union, it came up, and we see headlines nonstop addressing this. U.S. News and World Report, the youth mental health crisis isn't over. Kids' mental health is in crisis from American Psychological Association. It's life or death, though. The mental health crisis among U.S. teens in New York Times. Teenagers are growing more anxious and depressed. Teen mental health is in crisis. We see these headlines over and over again, whether it's in print, whether it's on social media, whether it's on the news. And so the constant question I am getting from many in the community is, how bad really is it? Because it's one thing to see what's in front of you, in front of your child, in front of your community, your block, but what are we seeing nationally? What are we seeing in our state? And then what are we seeing in our own county? And so what I've tried to do is with some ground us in a couple of statistics. In the state of California, and I'm citing from Children's Now, and it's the 2022 Kids book, we have about 700,000 children in the state that are experiencing serious mental or behavioral health needs. There's a rapid increase in the depression rate that we're seeing since 2011. And with that rapid increase, we're seeing that California now is in the bottom third of states for children well-being, just because of the sheer numbers that we're seeing. Rates of depression and suicidal feelings among high school students have steadily increased in the last decade. We're seeing from statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 31.5% of high school students are experiencing persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. And higher rates are being experienced by female students and Hispanic and Latinx students. In 2017, 17.2% of high school students seriously considered attempting suicide. For California high schoolers identifying as gay, lesbian, or bisexual, that rate is 4 times higher. And those statistics steadily increased since 2017, especially during the pandemic. The rate of mental health hospitalizations for youth has risen in California since 2011. It's now the #1 reason for hospitalization of school-age children. For too many children, access to mental health treatment only comes when the situation becomes an emergency. What we see is most children who do receive services get them at school. Yet less than half of elementary school students in the state of California have access to mental health care in their school. We're seeing more and more schools in populated counties such as Santa Clara County, San Mateo County. We have resources to do so, but a lot of the rural communities in California still do not have mental health care in their schools. And so that's the statistics and the level setting that we're able to provide. Whether you look at Children Now, whether you look at CDC, there's a lot of statistics that show that we are in a mental health crisis. But as we all know, those statistics really, it's one thing to have the numbers. There's so many stories that go along with those statistics. And we want to also understand, how do people feel about it? And so most recently, I was at a Common Sense Media Summit. It was their inaugural summit that they put together in January. And what they've also done is they've started to look at youth and families. I have their executive summary in front of me, the state of kids and families in America. And what their efforts last year was to look at not only these statistics, what's the data telling us, but they started to do polling on what do people in the country want to do about it. And I think it's very telling for me to share with you today, because I think it provides hope and that there's interest, and there are lots of people who want to get engaged and want to better understand how to help. So what they found in their polling is that voters across the board believe mental health for young people is an acute crisis. They believe the headlines, they're feeling it, and they're asking questions about it. Teens that were polled also see mental health as their top challenge. But they also find that they believe that mental health should be something that health insurance companies should cover. Mental health care should be covered in the same way that other types of health care is covered. And they are looking for solutions, whether it's legislation from their representatives or from their regulators, on how do they make that happen. They believe that improving access to mental health providers should be a top priority in the upcoming elections by legislators. And about 2/3 of the voters and people that responded to the polls believe that mental health care is a service that schools should provide. 68%, and the reason, and I'm going to focus on that number because 68% of voters, that it's pretty high statistics. And when you start to pull apart that data even more, you find that it's broad bipartisan appeal, whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. 3/4 of Democrats, 61% of Republicans believe schools should provide access to mental health care. I share these statistics because we're in an election year, but it also goes to show that across the board, there is bipartisan, broad appeal that this is something that we can solve and we should be addressing. Another interesting statistic from the polling is that non-parents are just as likely as parents to believe that schools should provide access to mental health care. And I'd love to hear feedback from Principal Slavin and Stacy on their thoughts on this, because what we saw during the pandemic is that schools are being asked to do almost everything for their community, provide food, and now we're looking at school-based mental health as the conduit to helping our youth mental health crisis. And we know that it's not fair to ask that entirely of a school community. And so One, today I'd love to talk with all of us about how do agencies, community service providers like Cassie, how does the government, how do we all participate so it doesn't all fall on schools? But what exactly is school-based? So much that we've been hearing about. And so let me, and why is it so effective? So school-based is the individual counseling that many of us think about when we think about reaching out to a therapist or a psychologist for support. By having it on campus and providing that individual counseling, you're removing transportation barriers, you're removing time barriers, you're just removing logistics to make it as easy as possible for students to seek out support. When you are on campus and a student is referred to a mental health counselor, whether it's Cassie or whether it's another agency or if it's a school provided counselor, you are making it as easy for that child and that family to receive support. Santa Clara County's own data book shows that students and families that are referred for school-based services will receive them if they are referred on campus, while only 8% of the families referred to an offsite school clinic will follow through and receive services. So 100% if you're doing school-based, yet 8% if you're being referred offsite. Again, there's so many barriers that prevent families from getting to the care that they need. So that's the number one logistical reason why school-based is effective. But two is oftentimes for young families, especially at elementary age, school-based counselor will be their very first exposure to a therapist. And that fear, that stigma immediately goes away if it is a familiar setting that they feel comfortable in, but it's also someone that they've seen on campus and that they know is a part of their school community. It just naturally breeds familiarity and comfort. And that's one of the other benefits of school-based. The therapist is on campus. It's someone that you see walking through the halls. It's someone that understands what that school community is like. It's someone that you can just go to instead of trying to schedule appointments that may be 2 to 3 weeks out. So logistically, it's just easier, and it breeds that familiarity that many students, especially young students, really crave. And so by being on campus, we provide individual counseling. And so that looks like the traditional counseling that you would receive if you were to make an appointment offsite. We could do group counseling. We look for opportunities to combine students that we find will have benefit working together. Some common groups that we run in schools: social skill building, coping skills, anxiety. Sometimes we'll do things that are specific to the time of year. If it's in high school, we'll do coping skills around anxiety, around test taking. So we try to really build it into what is happening currently in that student, in that child's life. But also the benefit of being on campus is we do classroom presentations, and it increases the touch point so that every student will have exposure to a therapist at some point. It helps to continue to destigmatize mental health. It normalizes having therapists around you. And again, it makes it and breeds familiarity with that therapist on that campus. One of our biggest goals, whether it's Cassie or you'll find among other youth-focused therapists, is you really believe that you build that family connection. And so one statistic that we found that just was mind-blowing during the pandemic, at one of our high schools that we worked with, the referrals from parents alone increased 700% during the pandemic. I think parents really started to understand the mental health crisis when they were at home with their children, experiencing on a daily basis and seeing for themselves what was happening. And so that parental connection, family connection has continued, and we are doing more parent presentations. We're doing more parent skills managing difficult behaviors. You're seeing a lot of that happening more on campuses nowadays. And again, we're there as part of the school community so that we're available to the school to be support to them. I mentioned earlier during the pandemic, we are relying so much on our schools to provide so much of our safety net, whether it's food, whether it's mental health. And so by being on campus, we can help offset a lot of what school staff and administrators have to do. We're available for any psychoeducation. We could do professional development, but we're also there to be able to check in on students. If there are issues brewing, we can help de-escalate. And we can also be available if there is a crisis. We can do the risk assessments. We can help with hospitalization if it looks to that point. And if children are hospitalized, when they return, we can help with reentry. And unfortunately, we're seeing so much more crisis happening at school campuses, and it's happening at a younger and younger age. We are seeing so many more elementary school children in crisis, having feelings of suicidal ideation. And that's, I think, a surprising factor that many of our therapists are finding at how young it's becoming. And so that, again, is the benefits of some of the school-based. When you hear so much investment now happening at a state level, at a county level, at school-based mental health, you're seeing the benefits of why that is. And I shared a little bit about what agencies like Cassie does. We're just there to be a support network to the entire school community. And when you support the school community, you see that you really start to help that larger community at play. I think one of the things that Principal Ida Price showed that when you have students, 930 students trying to work together, whether it's to raise funds for NAMI or whether it's just to raise awareness of breaking the silence, that 930 students then grows because they then share it with their parent. Those parents share it with their neighbors. And so by really investing and building that strong school community network of mental health, you really do ripple it out to the entire community. And that's been so enriching, and part of the work that we do here at Cassie is to really build that support network, that capacity, and really work with the school administrators to figure out what makes most sense for their community. So what are we seeing? We're hearing, I shared the national statistics and headlines. We, Cassie, work with about 40 schools. We're in San Mateo and Santa Clara County. And so statistically, last school year, what we saw is anxiety is the highest. Consistently, it's always anxiety. 42% of the students we work with, transitional kindergarten to high school, this is what we're seeing. Anxiety at 42%, academic stress, 34%, depression, peer relationships, and then working with a lot of children on emotional regulation. There may be some movement year after year, so that number 2 and number 3 changes, but anxiety over and over again is what we see again and again. Again, the value of school-based is we see based on the surveys that it works for those that are participating and utilizing it. 97% of students that we work with and their parents said that Cassie, and I'm going to broaden it to school-based counseling, it meets their needs and they recommend it to their peers and other parents. Overall, 98% increased or stabilized their daily functioning. 98% made progress on at least one of their treatment goals. I'm going to pause a little here, and just share that a lot of what we work on a school-based campus, there are issues that are appropriate for school-based. When we do an initial diagnosis, if there are deep issues that we do not feel is appropriate to tackle at a school campus, we will always refer those out to an outside provider so that whether it's we believe it's something that the family should be taking on through family therapy, or if it's something that's more appropriate outside of a school campus, we'll always make those referrals, but we'll be in contact with their outside provider to make sure that we continue to support them well on a school campus. So again, you see the benefits that progress is being made, and the students and families we work with believe that school-based mental health is working. Overall, and just a little bit about Cassie, the idea is you're training and you're mentoring professional therapists. Everyone that we hire is professional postgraduate, but it's also a pipeline to continue to expand our workforce. We hear so much about workforce shortages. We use associates as well as licensed. Those that graduate need 3,000 more hours to become licensed. And so we are looking at how do we hire more associates, give them those supervision hours, broaden our workforce, and continue to put more qualified therapists out into our sector. And we partner with schools that value mental health. We're working with both public and private school, and we're really looking at innovative ways to just make sure that every student has what they need. And we try to tailor our programs to meet the unique needs of our community. Ida Price's needs, even though we don't work with Ida Price, we know their needs are going to be very different from a school community in East Palo Alto or in Gilroy. And so really trying to identify what's unique about each school community and tailoring our program to them. And I think what's so valuable about mental health on a school campus is you're working with students and you're working with families, and they don't have to worry about payments. And that is one of the fundamental issues that makes it so successful. It's accessible, and you're removing barriers. And one of the biggest barriers for families in Santa Clara County is the ability to pay. Even those that are able to pay for have insurance to pay will find a lot of therapists that will not take their insurance or will not take new patients. So again, trying to be able to triage with resources that are immediately available to families. And so by looking at school-based, you're really able to start to pull so that students that are on campuses don't have to go into more intensive care. We do a lot of preventative work. Last year, we worked with close to 15,000 students in both San Mateo and Santa Clara County, and we're able to provide a lot of school-based counseling that otherwise would intensify and may deepen into larger intensive issues that we're hoping will not have to be addressed later on. And I think one of the things that I'd like to end on, just again with the value of working with youth so early, is you're meeting students where they're at. The earlier you work with students to destigmatize mental health, give them those coping skills, giving them the ability to learn that they should never hesitate to seek out support. You're just building stronger skills within children to know that they don't have to suffer in silence. There are outside resources available to them, and you continue to help children thrive and grow and continue to build this network of supporting one another. And, working with organizations like NAMI and other agencies that also provide mental health support, ultimately, we're looking at how do we use our resources so that we're working towards a healthier and safer and more equitable Santa Clara County, but a more healthier, safer, and equitable world that we live in. And with that, I'm going to just pause here and see if there's any questions and answers. And I'd love people's comments, thoughts, and just engage in conversation about what your thoughts are on school-based counseling and anything we can do to continue to support schools, continue to support the communities they're in, and see how we can partner together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have two questions, and I also want to say thank you for coming, because I want everybody to know that Mariko is just getting off the flu here. So she's being very noble in being here this evening. So the first question I have is, how do you work with families? And then after that, there's a question, I guess, of disclosure. So that's
Absolutely, absolutely. So how do we work with families? So on a school campus, we work with our school community, whether it's the principal or the AP, and develop a referral system. Some schools, especially elementary and middle, we triage it and everything goes through the administration. But ultimately, those referrals come to Cassie. And then once Cassie or the therapist receives a referral, they will then reach out to the parent with all the rights under, we follow HIPAA. They sign for consent. Once consent is given, we work with the student and we work with the family for a diagnosis, what are some goals, and develop a treatment plan. Disclose, everything remains confidential. And even though we are on a campus, we follow HIPAA in the sense that everything that happens in a counseling room remains confidential. Now, we are mandated reporters. If there is something that presents a risk to the school, to another person, or to a family, absolutely, those will be disclosed immediately as any mandated reporter would disclose. But whether you are working on a campus or whether you're working at a clinic, confidentiality will always remain of utmost importance.
Thank you. The next question is, what impact, this is going to be a very common one for most of us. What impact does tech, social media, owning phones have on anxiety and peer relationships and everything around the youth of today, basically?
Yeah, great question. And that's why I mentioned the common sense media. So as for many of those that aren't aware, Common Sense Media, it began as a platform that monitors what movies, what channels are appropriate and safe for young children. And they've really started to look at more advocacy on the social media effects on our children's mental well-being. I think across the board, if you follow the news, you are seeing that there is data that shows that social media is causing harm to our children's mental health. Now, social media can also create great things. It can be used as a tool, but there are algorithms that their own companies are showing that just keep children in a loop, but that often ends up spiraling in a negative manner. So yes, that there is a linkage there. What I can't do, and parents often ask, what's the right number? Is it 3 hours? Is it 5 hours? There's no magical number, and that's really where we work with parents to see what are the behaviors of your child that is causing concern, and can we start to look at taking trying to figure out what those triggers are and trying to figure out safe structures so that they are working with social media. I think it's an impossibility to say that you will take away their phones, but what are the safeguards that parents can do to help students so that they understand when they start to spiral in a negative way? Yes, Principal Slavin.
Thank you so much. And I don't want to keep us over, but I do want to touch on that because it's such a big part of our life in middle school. What we see is the more time the kid, and this is study after study, the more time they're on the apps, TikTok, Instagram, the less self-esteem they have and the more anxiety they have. It's a direct correlation. There's a plethora of data that proves that. Also, there is no magic number. I agree completely. But what I would suggest as a mother, as well as a principal of middle school, is don't let them have their device in their bedroom at night. That's when most of our disciplined bullying happens, is when the kids and really dangerous activities such as meet me outside whenever. So if you can remove any of the electronics at night when they're going to bed so they can get some good sleep, that would be great. Also, all of those apps, that phone is owned by you and they're tracking all of your stuff, all of your information. They're getting everything. Everything your child is looking up on Google, they're looking that up. They're figuring out everything about your family, your trends, your patterns, what you like, what you don't like. So all of those cookies, they're eating up all of your information, and they know that they're very, very good at this. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, all of them are tracking you, your child, and the more your child use it, the less self-esteem they have and the more anxiety they have. That's what the data shows, and that's certainly anecdotally what we have seen at school. Is that right, Stace? And it's what
Yeah.
exactly what Mariko was
I mean,
talking.
that's
And
absolutely.
Common
what
Sense
we-
Media is
Yeah.
is fantastic for any information you need to check out what movies are saved from back in the old day, to find out what movies are appropriate for kids, all the way up to lessons and tips for parents to help them monitor their kids' media platforms.
Is
Absolutely.
there, Mariko, is
and-
there, oh, I was just gonna ask if there was a link we could put in the chat for Common Sense.
Common Sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's commonsense.org.
okay,
And what I will also do is we also are partnering with them. So if there are parents that want presentations from Common Sense, we work together with them. So we're happy to do that for any school community or parent groups. One thing that they also do is there are several bills now that really show, as Margaret said, the data's there. And so there's legislation that is being proposed that makes the default so that any social media app 13 and under, it immediately defaults so that parents have to affirm whether or not they want it on at night. It'll shut down 12 to 6. It'll affirm whether parents want their cookies to be shared. And again, there's always loopholes around these, but at the very minimum, they're asking social media or the owners of these channels to really put more safeguards in place for the children that they're targeting. And so again, it's something that parents that are concerned about should be paying attention to. The data shows, as Margaret said, the longer you're on, the more your children will spiral downward. There's algorithms that just keep them addicted to this.
And what we see in the middle school is kids don't talk that way in person. They're nice to each other in person, but the things that they say over text and in Snapchat is so cruel. And the bullying, the cyberbullying is so acute that it really does spiral kids, because it's like, I tell the kids, it's like dropping a bomb from 40,000 feet up in the air. You don't see who you're hurting. When you say something mean about a girl in school or a boy in school, you don't see their face when they read that message. And their frontal lobe is not developed yet, right? So and we can legislate the heck out of it. And I think the legislation should go through. But the bottom line is the parents are going to have to take that phone away. And from midnight to 6 would be great. With our 11 and 12-year-olds, I'm hoping from 8 to 8, but yeah, if they, and we don't allow them in school. Do kids get away with it? Yes, but we certainly try to monitor it. And just the fact that we have that rule tells everyone at school, this is not appropriate for school.
Yeah.
okay, great, thank you. That's great insight. So very helpful for you to, firsthand knowledge as well to provide that information. I want to move on. We have another question. So this person is asking, Mariko, I think they're asking, what is the cost of CASI for a school? And then do you also support this kind of work at a church?
So the cost for a school, one of our values is that we will never walk away from someone that can afford it. So if a school can hire a therapist, it usually costs $130,000 for an entire school year to have a therapist full-time on your campus. And so one therapist can usually do 5 to 6 sessions in a day. And so you really start to see how that one therapist can just magnify the number of sessions that they do. If a school, we have many schools that can't afford that total cost, we will fundraise for the difference. And so if there's a school that you're aware of that is interested in school-based counseling, please have them reach out to me. I'll put my contact information in the chat because we do fundraise to make sure that no school feels that they can't afford us. Do we support churches? We support schools associated with churches. So we are actively working with the diocese. And again, we're looking at independent schools. We're also working with some homeschoolers. So the idea really students, TK through 12, and we are looking at the ability to work with community colleges because they also have needs. We know that there's still children as well, 17 to 24, and really just looking to see where we can fill a gap. There are many agencies that do similar work, and our goal is to just be where we're needed and not to duplicate efforts. So just like there are many schools that are doing the same work. And so really working in community where we can utilize our services to make sense and partner to fill in needs when needed.
Great. I have one more question for you.
Mhm.
It's actually from one of our board members. I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but I am. Anyway, it's please elaborate on how having school-based mental health services helps to reduce stigma. You did do that somewhat also in your talk and identify potential and helps to identify mental health earlier, preventative,
Yeah.
and leads towards more successful treatment and reduces mental health crisis later in life.
Okay, definitely. So by being on the school campus, you see children and you see them in their natural environment. And I think one of the things as a parent, when people ask, well, what am I looking for? You're looking for patterns. And so oftentimes a school teacher, they get to know the children that are in their class, school counselors, school staff. Again, a mental health therapist on campus gets to know the children, even those that aren't referred to them. They can start to identify if there's behavioral patterns. They can start to see if there's maybe some disorders that need to be diagnosed. They get to work with the teachers that may start to identify patterns, and then you bring a mental health therapist to see if there's a diagnosis that's needed, if there's something else underlying the behavior and that's happening on a campus. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a story that just happened most recently that goes to show the value of being on a campus. One of my therapists has been working with a young student that was being referred because he was being disruptive. He had truancy issues. He was not showing up. He was argumentative. He was constantly fighting on campus. Through the work that she was able to do on campus, she found out that student basically was always truant the first period because that young student was responsible because both parents were going to school early, getting the younger kids to school, taking a public school bus to the younger kid, dropping off his younger sister, then taking the school bus to his own school, always missing first period. But instead of having to deal with being, oh, you're late again, was just not showing up. And then figured out that he also had a reading disorder and needed assistance. And so all these things, by being on a campus, just starting to notice the patterns and being able to ask questions other than what he would bring forward, enabled them to work with the school administrators to figure out, can we push his schedule back so that those truancies weren't leading to failures, but more to how can we make sure that the student and his family's needs get addressed so that he wasn't being delinquent, he wouldn't fail, and then he may not even graduate from high school. And so we all know that those sequences could just continue to exasperate, and that young student could later then develop, and those issues could develop into larger issues. And so I think, again, working together in community, sharing with school administrators that there's something beyond maybe a truancy, really sets up that child, it sets up that family, and ultimately it sets up that entire community for success.
No, that's a great example. And it shows that, there's always something beyond what you can see, right? If you just have a chance to, be able to work with that individual. So that's great. I mean, that was a fantastic example. That's the last question I had. Kathy, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
If anyone wants to ask a question, I can unmute you. Also, I saw a comment from Jim and Pat Bell in that Q&A. Did you see that?
Yes, about the community
Community
college.
colleges? Uh-huh.
Yes.
So,
And yeah, we would love to, right now, we are not working with any community colleges, but I know that that's something that the state is extending. As we all know, children, students are go up until 24, transitional age youth, and that's something we're also looking at.
if someone wants to raise their hand, I can unmute you if you want to.
Could I ask a question? Maybe if I could. So I've been listening. This is fantastic. So maybe Principal Levin or Mariko, what about any gender issues have you encountered, and how do you deal with that?
Definitely, I'll go first, and then I'd love to hear Margaret. So we work with many students that are trying to discover their identities, and you're finding more and more young kids. There's a certain amount of fluidity, and I have actually several young students that don't want to identify as one or the other. But we are working with many students on how to have those conversations with their parents. And so again, it's a safe space for children to explore and to be able to feel that they have a safe person to talk to, and then someone that can help them bridge that gap with either a parent or someone in the family, so that they also have someone outside of a school community that they know will be an advocate and a champion that they can talk to.
Exactly what Mariko said, and that's exactly what sorry, the dog's barking. Exactly what we're seeing in the middle schools and even in the elementary schools. There is a much bigger population of kids questioning their gender identity, and we encourage them to talk to their family members trusted family members about it. If they don't have a trusted family member, we certainly ask them to talk to the counselors, especially in, 4th or 5th grade and in middle school. They are still so young to deal with such complicated questions that we encourage them to listen to their bodies and listen to their minds and talk about this with adults. But making those decisions with adults in mind. Stacy Bebo, can you address that for a second as well? She works with this a lot as well.
Yeah, you know what though? I do think the times have changed and the kids are more accepting now. And even though they do a lot in private and talk to their counselors, and a lot of them don't want to state, there are a lot of kids over the past, since I've been teaching 25 years, they feel more open and more comfortable with their peers. And I do think it's because we do offer the mental health, it has become such an open forum for these students to talk and to reach out to counselors and other people.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat. If not, I think we'll end our meeting a little bit early. And again, congratulations, Ida Price Middle School. And thank you, Mariko, for a great presentation. Good. And it was very convenient. You were all here at the same time. Did we plan that, or did that just happen?
Thank you, Mariko, so much. That was a beautiful presentation. Thank you to the board. Thank you most to Stacy Bebo, who really did spearhead all of this work. She and I have been texting during this because that's what you do when you're on Zoom. And we're going to look into Cassie and some of the work that they're doing, and we could definitely use them at our school for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have
Thank
a wonderful
you
evening, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Feel better.
Oh, yes, feel better.
Valentine's Day.
So nice